Welcome to PCB Chat, where we talk with experts across the printed circuit design, manufacturing, and electronic supply chain fields. I'm Mike Buetow, president of the Printed Circuit Engineering Association. My guests today are Wally Rhines and Merlyn Bruncken. Wally is our most frequent guest on PCB Chat, bringing us the latest electronic design automation data each quarter. Wally spent more than 45 years in semiconductor and PCB design as an executive with Mentor Graphics and Texas Instruments. He is the spokesperson for the community of Semiconductor Equipment and Materials International, known as the ESD Alliance, which focuses on the design software side of the industry. Joining Wally is Merlyn Bruncken, the longtime market intelligence director with Siemens Digital Industries, formerly Mentor. So today we are discussing the first quarter 2023 EDA market numbers from the ESD Alliance. These are for the period ending March 31st, 2023, and are released the week of July 10th, 2023. And Wally, things in the PCB and MCM design tools market may have slowed in Q4, but they rebounded with a vengeance in Q1. So that's what now, 9 straight quarters of growth for PCB and MCM design?
I believe so. Merlyn can tell you exactly, but I have to say this is sort of a unique time because the PCB and MCM category grew faster than any other category in the EDA survey. And that I can't remember saying any time in recent history, because we've always thought of PCB as being a mature technology, and the growth has traditionally been in the leading edge integrated circuit design. This time, and actually after a fairly strong quarters in the last few years, now we hit the top, and we're number one in fastest growing part of EDA software. And then the total survey for all EDA software grew very close to a record $14 billion cumulative run rate for the last 4 quarters.
And I think for PCB, the annual run rate was something around 1.5 billion.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that, but that's yeah, I believe 1.4, 1.5, I think is the number. Yeah, so very, very strong.
So it's got to be a record quarter for revenue for the segment.
It probably is. If you look at the trend, it's been up dramatically. I can remember you and I were doing these calls not that long ago where we were saying basically PCB was $1 billion category. Now we're talking about 40% greater growth. So it's been a substantially accelerating part of the business. And I might note that normally you think, well, okay, package design has really become a big thing. But as Merlyn has noted, a lot of the survey people put their numbers just in PCB layout rather than making it specific to packaging. So I think our packaging numbers understate reality. I think the PCB physical layout category may be somewhat overstated as a result, but there's no doubting the total. The total is real, and 1.4 billion is the number for the last 4 quarters.
Yeah, so that's that really is a remarkable feat that the industry is seeing, especially because I can't point to any particular new tool, I think, that's come out in the last 3 or 4 quarters that would have necessarily like just moved the market. It seems to me that it's more just a byproduct of all the new design starts and people needing new tools.
Well, I think people would say that the system design business has just been very, very strong in recent quarters. The automotive is quite a strong segment for electronics right now. Systems design companies are doing more and more of their own design, and the whole industry is fairly healthy. It doesn't seem to be worrying much about a recession, and so that causes companies to commit to more design activity.
I think PCB analysis has picked up a lot of the packaging numbers in the last year or so, last couple of years.
Which has been a significantly growing part of the business. So we're talking about a fourth of the total actually maybe a little less, but PCB analysis for the at the run rate is roughly $300 million. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. And likewise for the overall EDA market, revenue was just shy of $4 billion for the quarter.
Yeah, that $4 billion level, I believe, would be a record. Merlyn could tell you that. But the thing that impressed me more about it was the fact that it was very broad and very deep. So the actual number of the product categories in general were all very strong, except for silicon IP. And the geographies were strong, including, I might add, Europe this time.
Right. So every region showed growth in the March quarter. But if I look back over the past couple decades, Japan looks like it's roughly where it was maybe 15 or so years ago. Over that same time frame, revenue in the Americas have doubled. Any thoughts as to why the ongoing industry upswing has been lagging so long in Japan? Is there a structural issue, perhaps, that the other regions don't have?
Well, of course, the survey doesn't tell us anything about the why, only the what.
Sure.
And I think your observation is correct. I think probably when you look back as far as you're looking 10 or 15 years, one of the phenomena we've seen is growth in the systems business in Korea, in China, Taiwan, somewhat at the expense of Japan, particularly consumer electronics. So it could be that that's been in effect. It seems like recent quarters, Japan in a lot of other businesses is bouncing back. But in terms of EDA, while it was positive this time, it was only about a 4% growth in this most recent quarter, and its run rate is about 2%.
Now, I want to note a couple interesting tidbits from the 4 quarters moving average data. And for listeners, the 4 quarters moving average compares the most recent 4 quarters to the previous 4 quarters, and it's used to smooth out some of the short-term blips. By that measure, Asia Pacific moved ahead of Europe to become the second largest PCB and MCM tools consumer. And the nearly 26% jump for the Americas means it's not only the largest geography for PCB and MCM, but it's getting close to 2 times that of any other region.
Yeah, well, I think those are good observations, and I think reflect some of the character of our industry right now. Asia Pacific has been very strong. I think it's worthwhile getting into what's happening in China to really understand it, because the growth in China is such a big part of what drives the PAC rim. And in recent quarters, China has not been as strong as it has traditionally been. It's up on a 4-quarter basis about 22%, and similarly, Korea is quite strong, 32%. The Taiwan and India, less so. This momentum in Asia Pacific, the fact that it's ahead of Europe isn't too surprising. The thing that might be more surprising is how strong North America is.
Agreed. The jobs figure, I mean, that rose nearly 13% year over year and 4.5% sequentially. So now more than 57,000 persons employed by the sector worldwide. So, we hear about, the front page stories in the San Jose Mercury News and other places, are about how hiring is slowing, or even, large scale layoffs at some big name customers. But that hasn't reverberated into the EDA space.
It really hasn't. Merlyn and I talk about this a lot, because if you go back, you hardly ever see a quarter where employment in EDA doesn't grow. And typically it grows as much or more than the revenue grows. And so, as you can see here, revenue grew 12%, employment grew 12.9%. You can't do that forever. Sooner or later, it catches up with you. But it's interesting. Employment tends to be a very strong number for the EDA industry.
Anything else you think that is worth noting this quarter, Wally?
Well, I think I missed to say at the beginning, the record we were talking about is a $4 billion quarter. And I think, Merlyn, is that an all-time record?
I think we are at an all-time record. I think so.
So very healthy. The other thing to note, I think the weakness in reporting companies' IP could well be a single quarter kind of thing, because IP has been really a very strong category over the last several years. But we'll have to see. It's really the reporting companies. That means the major EDA companies who saw weakness in the IP reporting or in their numbers this last quarter. But it was significant. It was down quite a bit. Worldwide, down 14% in that category, even though total IP was actually very flat.
Does the ESD Alliance ever try to estimate what percent of the market it's missing in its numbers?
No. Interesting. Yeah, but we don't. Some organizations report for non-reporting companies, but typically we not do that.
What you can do, Mike, is if your people want to subscribe to the report, they can look at all the companies that report and then decide for themselves, does that include all those that are representative of their competitors or the people that they deal with in the business? I think you'll find it's a very broad list. A lot of companies willingly submit their data because they get more than they give. Their data remains confidential, and yet they're able to see what's happening in broader trends. And it gives them insight into whether their good results are unique to them or whether it's just a broad industry trend. So I think the data is very helpful.
Yeah, and I will say that some of the numbers that we in the media are supplied with are very revealing. Even if they're things that we can't necessarily share outright. I mean, I get a glimpse of what the rest of the report looks like, and I would recommend it for folks that are really trying to stay on top of what's going on and not just rely on personal observation. Folks who are interested in that, I'll do a little plug here. The ESD Alliance website is esd-alliance.org, or you can email contact@edmd@semi.org. Well, thanks as always for sharing the news, Wally and Merlyn, and we look forward to catching up with you next quarter.
Okay, good talking to you, Mike. I hope we have another good one.
Yeah, me too. For PCB Chat, this is Mike Buetow. Have a good day.